Welcome in a very special debate about cybersecurity and telecommunication. And we have a nice possibility to have around the table four, no myself, distinguished guests. Because of PPF, brought them to Prague to special conference on telecommunication and cybersecurity. So I would ask you, introduce yourself to our spectators briefly, and after we will start debate. Okay? You're right. Let's start.
Thanks. I'm Juraj Šedivý. I'm CEO of CETIN International, which is the network owner and operator in 4 countries, Slovakia, Bulgaria, Hungary, and Serbia. I'm also the chairman of the board of the Czech CETIN. So we operate and provide the telecommunication services.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vas Gudladana. I'm CTO, Chief Technology Officer for a company called ORAN Development Company. And we specialize...
Could you introduce a little bit your company?
Yeah. So we specialize in building equipment on the network side for the mobile. See, what you see is the mobile here, but on the network side, you'll see a tower, an antenna,
especially
the radio.
What CETIN is doing here
what CETIN is doing.
Republic.
So the whole idea is to work closely with CETIN. We are building a next generation network technology that would incorporate artificial intelligence and autonomous networks. So we are very...
We will speak about this topic.
Yes. So, like I said, glad to be here along with the distinguished guests here.
Thank you.
Hakan, Ekmen is my name. I'm running network services in Accenture.
Consulting company.
And busy with the telecom industry, especially the development in networks.
Thank you.
My name is Emerson. I am the Chief Innovation Officer for Payala Technologies Europe. We build disaster and attack resistant payment technologies for places that experience disaster, conflict, post-conflict, and have otherwise high-risk environments. And before this, I spent decades inside the security and intelligence industry establishment, working on the offensive cybersecurity technologies.
So, and one secret, you are also former hacker.
Well, I mean, that's what it's
very special to have in debate people from other side. You are basically defenders, all of you.
Yeah, they're the defenders.
There are 3 defenders and 1 attacker. Yeah, it's a very interesting format. Could we start about a little bit, explain development, this relationship between defenders and hackers? Because usually hackers or attackers are faster than defenders. It's same in the nature.
Yeah, so it's very interesting in that. So this actually goes back to a really fundamental paradox, which is the attacker-defender paradox, which is that a defender has to be right 100% of the time, right? So for every attack, there must be a defense, and that defense must, in order for the defense to be successful, that defense has to counter every attack. The attacker, on the other hand, only has to succeed once, right? So once I'm inside...
inside the network.
Yeah, once I'm inside the network, I can then pivot, and then I can expand my access laterally and also vertically, i.e. I can go deeper into the network, but also I can use that network to then jump between networks once I'm actually inside. So what's happened over the years is that the attack surface, when we talk about attack surface, that means not just the online space, there's technical exploitation, but I can also exploit the thing that sits between the user and the keyboard, namely the user, the human being, in order to get access. And so the attack surface for attackers is much, much broader than just the network itself. And so, like, when we start to frame this discussion, we have to think about it in those terms. You know, like, what is the area that these gentlemen here have to defend, right? Versus the area that a hostile actor has to exploit to attack in order to achieve their mission, their goals.
What's the motivation to become hacker?
Oh, in my case, well, I started...
okay. Maybe your case in general, yeah.
Okay, so when I started...
It's money, fame...
in my case, it was a very long time ago. I'm a lot older than I look.
You look fabulous.
I turned 50 this year, and I started when I was 14. Before computer crime was
high school?
Yeah, before computer crime was a crime. I actually did it because I actually got into it because I was exposed very early on to the internet before there was before the World Wide Web and all the rest of this stuff, and it was very difficult to get access to this. So I ended up rewiring things so I could get access to the university network from my computer at home. And that's how I started. It was a pure utility thing. And then I just, got interested.
So it's similar as motivation of Mark Zuckerberg putting together Facebook.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was all about girls. Yeah, and I was just like, wow, look at this. Look at all these amazing people that I can talk to all over the world. And I was a fairly precocious child, and and that sort of stuff is actually how I really got interested, because then you start going into the technology, you start going into the technical detail, you start programming and stuff, and there's this whole other world, invisible, fascinating world.
Some kind of curiosity.
Oh yeah. I mean, these days things are very, very different now, in that it's pretty well paid. Depending on where you are in the world, there is also...
It's very well paid. It's better paid than on the side of
defenders.
Yeah, if you...
It's a wonderful insight to the hacking business.
If you are in a country like Russia or Indonesia, or for the Philippines, where wages are very, very low, right? Wages are very low. The possibilities to actually make, good money and then get out are few and far between, and you're technically talented. Cybercrime represents a relatively easy way to get the funds you need to actually effectively launch yourself out of poverty.
Yeah.
Right? And so
it's very nice.
And so what you end up with is this situation where an awful lot of cybercrime comes from developing countries, where essentially you have technically talented young people who don't have the opportunity to come, to say the Czech Republic and work for CETIN or Accenture, or because all of this is out of reach. Right? We simply are not going to pay for the education of these people at good Western universities so they can go and work for Accenture. Right? So they will take advantage of that, and they will use their technical talent to enable them to actually make the jump out of poverty.
Yeah, that's a good explanation why so powerful in hacking is Russia. It used to be Ukraine.
Yeah. Absolutely.
There is a lot of mathematically talented and educated people who are, without other possibilities, prospects and good future.
That is exactly right. And one of the things is about all of the education systems of these former Soviet countries is that they're very heavy on mathematics. They're very heavy on these technical subjects, and the way that they're taught, i.e. they're not taught with computers, they're taught with, pen and paper. And what that means is that people are actually very good at actually doing that sort of logical analysis in their minds, rather than leaning on programming tools or AI. Yeah. And what that means is then, because they're able to use their imaginations in combination with that logical, analytic mindset, it means they are much better at finding bugs and much better at finding vulnerabilities than people who are often more classically trained in computer science or lean very heavily on AI tools or programming tools.
Yeah, because they are thinking more systematically, let's say.
But they're also thinking very, very laterally. Yeah. Because again, that education system where you're encouraged to write everything down, and the computer science education in Russia and Ukraine back in the day was that because computers were so rare, what very often happened is that people actually had to actually write down and keep the state machine, i.e. the state of the computer, in their heads. And what that does is it encourages a fundamentally very, very different way of thinking. And one that sort of like harks back to my era, because simply AI back in the very early 90s simply just didn't exist. All of these tools just didn't exist.
It's right. I heard that originally AI is from 70s, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, like not in a form that you'd recognize.
And last question: those people are paid by who? Those hackers in these developing countries?
Oh, I mean, there's an entire criminal underground with bosses, capos. I mean, it looks like
some kind of black or shadow economy.
Yeah. It looks completely like every other criminal economy. I mean, like the currencies might be different. The currencies might be Bitcoin or Ethereum or some other cryptocurrency, but structurally, it's kind of exactly the same. There are the bosses on top. There are capos and soldiers, and structurally, it's all the same. Well, the difference here is that now the boss might be in Russia, like some of the soldiers doing the execution might be in like Indonesia or the Philippines or wherever, and it's all spread out and it's amorphous. But there are black markets, that operate on the dark web.
HR departments. And
it actually, I mean, like one of the most fascinating things that I remember is that some friends of mine actually managed to get inside one of these criminal networks actually, and were watching all of the conversation internally. They're watching people arguing about getting paid, arguing about money, arguing what the right price point was, and the boss is pushing back, going like, why do you get so greedy? Don't you think we'd pay you in, all of that stuff? And it's all happening inside of there. I mean, like, it is an entire shadow business.
Like a big reality show.
Yeah.
Online, there's a secret service.
Yeah, but it's all there, right?
You're right. Back to...
Sorry, I tried to digression.
I think that for our readers, it will be wonderful, inside view to the hacking mind. It's very exclusive. Thank you. You're right. On the defender side, what is going on right now? Cyber networks. For us as a customer, we are, on the last part of network, but we are not seeing all these infrastructure, or manufacturing investments, everything which is behind the scene.
Yeah. And I'll try to sort of build upon what Emerson said. I mean, and why it is a big industry, why hacking and cybercrime. The reason is you are attacking very large ecosystem of the telecommunications network and IT systems in general, which are facilitating other functions of the economies, of private users, of companies, the governments, etc.
So institutions.
So by making an impact and materialize the attack into something which will disrupt the network or paralyze the network or question the confidentiality or integrity of the data, has a huge return on the investment. And then you need the guys who have the mindset of the attackers. And obviously it's always good to have bad guys like Emerson, who is a bad guy. Now we know he is a good guy, actually. So we call them a red team. So,
he used to be that guy right now.
Well, he was always
when I started.
And the reason is, I mean, obviously you have the mentality of the defenders, the guys who are, super competent and building the networks, and we'll touch base on that because network is a very, very complex ecosystem evolving, facilitating the new services, compared to my beginnings in the sector 30 years ago, where it was predominantly voice. It's now all data, and the data are facilitating the...
I used to work in Český Telekom.
A long time, very long time. I'm veteran of the industry. But you know what? I mean, now the average user has 30, 40 applications on their private mobile phones, and that's just, with all my respect, the private user. But when it comes to large companies or institutions or defense of the countries, I mean, they are relying on these networks. So wherever you can cause harm, you can cause economic harm as well, and that obviously is paid by the criminal actors. So you can actually get the money as a ransom from the companies you hack the data off, or from your bosses, because they represent a nation state actor who wants to harm the Czech Republic or wants to harm the Europe, etc. So that's the economy. It's more than 1 trillion. I mean, the estimates are fluctuating, but it's more than 1 trillion industry of the bad guys, not the bad good guys like Emerson.
1 trillion in the whole world globally.
Yeah, it's a global.
Yeah. It's a completely globalized business.
It's a completely globalized business. You have no geographical boundaries to that. I mean, you can attack effectively from whoever, and wherever, and whenever. And exactly as mentioned, we need to defend a network in the concept of, yes, there may be 1,000 attacks, and we need to defend each one of them. For the attacker, just repeating what Emerson said, you can try 100 times. If you are successful once, that's enough for you. So that's an unequal, unlevel play field. So that much more demanding it is to actually create a defense strategy, technical tools, the human factor, and defense the functionality of the network. And again, I think we
also convinced owners about necessity of big investments, because they are for us it's invisible.
And that's a super important point. You need to elevate this topic to the boardroom level. I mean,
that's the reason why we are doing this debate.
Exactly, because when it's rank and file employees, with all my respect to them, all the specialists, they know. I mean, they know the vulnerabilities, they know potential impact, they know the magnitude of the risks, they know the defense strategies. But you need to fund them. To do that, you need to convince the board level executives. Actually, this is an important topic. The fact that nothing happened over the last 12 or 24 months doesn't mean that something would not happen tomorrow. And you need to somehow estimate that risk, quantify it, and then fund the defense strategies. It's not easy.
It's the same as insurance.
Yes, absolutely.
I insure myself and hopeful that nothing
it will never happen.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that's a good analogy, actually.
But you also have to be very careful as well that it doesn't encourage more reckless behavior. Right, so the insurance analogy only goes so far. Insofar as insurance, once the event happens, it's about the recovery from the loss.
Yes.
Yeah.
In this particular case, the loss might be absolute and complete, and what that means is that some of these threats pose potential losses that are potentially uninsurable.
And one more thing, this became a battlefield, and it's part of the warfare actually right now. So the hybrid attacks, and I'm old enough. And
becoming worse after 2022.
We definitely see more severe attacks, the higher frequency of the attacks, the more need for the real-time defense. So the frequency and the cadence of the attacks is becoming such that you need to react in 10 minutes time, or sometimes in 60 seconds time, to actually deflect the intrusion to the network, etc., as opposed to having 24 or 48 hours or half a year to actually patch your software. So it's becoming serious. It's becoming, it can have a massive impact. And I'm always returning to my sort of memories of my little history books. And Czechoslovakia in 1939, when we were building, or 38, when we were actually 37, when we were building the fortifications against Nazis to protect us, with the outlook, okay, it will be finished in 1950. And in the meantime, there was a Second World War. And it reminds me, that situation, like, we are hoping nothing will happen, Belle Epoque, nothing, it cannot happen. But it can happen very quickly, and the consequences can be dire. So we really need to pay attention at the level of the state agencies, at the level of NUKIP in the Czech Republic, cybersecurity agencies, at the level of the companies, at the level of Department of Defense, Department of Interior, the Homeland Security, etc., to really have the robust networks and the robust defense of those networks.
I would also argue that, in fact, actually, it goes all the way down to the individual end user. There is one thing that you can do as an individual private citizen to actually sort of like help secure your stuff, there are a couple of things that you can do. One, turn on automatic updates on all of your devices,
Good
and
advice,
your laptop and stuff, right? And your computers and your phones, and like turn on automatic updates. When that thing comes up, that little notification comes up which says update available, right? Don't put it off. It's like, oh, this might be inconvenient, No. Right there, right now, plug it into charge and the rest of it, hit the little thing, which says update and the rest of it, and update your stuff. That's one. Two, turn on two-factor authentication for all the services, all your cloud services that support that. So that's your Google Drive, that's your Google, that's your Google Mail, that's, all of this Microsoft stuff, right? There are authenticator apps for your phone that make this process very, very simple. Now, turn that stuff on ASAP, right? Don't delay. Is it slightly painful? Yeah, it is a little bit, but it will ultimately save you so much pain later on. And it will also, if you're somewhat older, it will also save your children a huge amount of pain, because what happens when my mother her email gets compromised, she calls me in the middle of the night to try and get it to recover. So save yourself a great deal of hassle and save yourself a great deal of pain, and please turn this stuff on. It will just make your relationship with your technologically enabled children so much easier if you do it now.
Important lesson even for myself. I will do it just after this debate. Promise.
Okay. So from the defender perspective, again, going along with what Juraj said, so I'll talk about networks, how we are building next generation networks to defend those attacks, right? So if you look at this phone, so first of all, the traffic pattern is changing, right? Previously, the data used to be on your laptop, computer. Now, 70% of your data is going through your phones, because
they have same experience from media.
Exactly.
Yeah, because everybody is reading only on cell phones.
In a business meeting, none of them are carrying laptops anymore.
Yeah.
So they're all carrying the phones. So it's
most of their day, important part.
Very important part. So this is where, like Emerson said, on the phone, what you can do, right? But there is also a job to be done on the network side. So I'll give a quick overview on how network looks like and then how networks are evolving. So when you walk around, what CETIN and team does, you would have seen there are towers, cell phone towers that your phone talks to. You would have seen a rectangular antenna. We call it antenna. So these invisible RF waves are absorbed by that. There is a transmission and reception there. And it goes to hardware boxes, right? So in previous generation or until now, even today, all those
even 5G.
Even 5G, they are all black boxes. So Emerson made a very good point before. Just because you kept it closed and obscure doesn't mean it is secure. Because he said in the previous discussion, when he opened it and did a scan, there are more vulnerabilities there. So what we, in our company, ODC or Odyssey, we call it, we pioneered open networks. So this box, black box, which is called radio access network, we opened up the interfaces. So, and we virtualized it, which means we made it softwareized rather than more hardware. And this software sits on any common off-the-shelf hardware. You can buy a Dell server or an HP server and you can put it in. What is the big advantage of it? One is no proprietary stuff. And you are using common off-the-shelf servers. Advantage of that is you can use best of the class security softwares, all proven, because this is running on common operating system everyone using. So companies like IBM, Microsoft, whoever is developing security software can be used out there. And there is bigger community like Emerson and team are looking at how you can break, and all those software updates you can automatically have. So again, going back to, I agree with him, which is just because you're obscured doesn't mean it is secure. So you have to keep defending it. So that is one big advantage. The other advantages is the next generation technologies like artificial intelligence and other technologies can be incorporated on this. Because if you bring in AI, you cannot run it on a proprietary hardware and proprietary software. So there are a lot of packages that goes on the common off-the-shelf hardwares and servers. So that is another advantage of open networks. So we recently, our company, we formed a partnership just announced yesterday with NVIDIA and Cisco to build a end-to-end next generation AI native, artificial intelligence native, advanced 5G and 6G networks, and which are very
Could you explain a little bit the difference between 5G and 6G AI, let's call it here,
so I'll start
for
with
simplification.
Yeah, so in a simple words, between when you go from 4G to 5G to 6G, these are different generation networks. In a layman terms, it's just additional bandwidth. So instead of getting 20 Mbps, you are getting 60 Mbps or 100 Mbps. And then going into 5G, you not only get higher bandwidth, but also lower latency. Latency means the time it takes from packet operation to go and come back across the networks. So you are basically, as you go from 5G to 6G, you are increasing the bandwidth because your applications now are more video, more data centric. You need higher bandwidth. And then you need low latency. When you're doing gaming between, suppose me and Emerson are playing gaming here, it goes through the network. If the latency is low, I press a button here, it takes about 10 minutes for him.
I've already I've already shot you several times, and I'm doing that little victory dance.
You're shooting him, and the bullet is not.
You're very nervous,
So,
response.
So the whole idea is to generate very low latency networks as the generation goes on. So the 6G, I don't want to go too technical into what the difference is because you get higher bandwidth as you go higher frequencies. So the frequencies used between 4G, 5G, 6G, they're all higher frequencies. So you have more bandwidth there that you can give it to the subscriber. So you can see in future the driverless cars, all will be done by advanced 5G and 6G, because so when the cars are driving without drivers by themselves, right, autonomous driving, it has to make a quick decision when a car is turning and it sees the other car is coming. So you need to make a decision in microseconds and milliseconds. It cannot take 2 seconds. By the time it would have crashed.
Because you are dead,
So that's where 5G networks, advanced 5G networks and 6G networks are going to bring in the new next generation applications. 5G and 6G networks are going to host it, right? So it will evolve into autonomous, so network will heal itself, will upgrade itself, self-healing. So all those will be what you see and with this artificial intelligence coming in and, smart people like Emerson his AI algorithms can be run on the networks where it is constantly looking for any threats, attacks. So that's what we see in the next generation networks. That's how we plan to defend all the cybersecurity threats and vulnerabilities, address the vulnerabilities.
When it will work, this...
So advanced 5G, so right now we are working on advanced 5G, what we call 5G standalone. CETIN would be one of the first operators that would be deploying as we plan. It's called 5G plus. It's 5G standalone.
Are you disagree? 5G plus is not...
Yeah, whatever you call it. I mean, it's a standalone 5G, and it's with the advanced features which are unlocking a host of new applications which can be put on the network and run safely, securely, fast enough.
Very fast and very low latency. because the current 5G that is running out there, what you use, is still using 4G core network. So only some portion is 5G and the back end is still 4G. But when CETIN advances into advanced 5G, it will be end-to-end 5G. So the latency will be much, much lower. And
6G?
And 6G will be, it will be super fast, high bandwidth, extremely low latency.
And
almost.
it will be a reality in which year?
See, deployment, when CETIN deploys, it will be
Right.
expected to be 2030 is what we are expecting.
Because we just pay the checks for the 5G. You know.
No, but the
Okay,
technology itself will be available by 2028, and it will be in the labs. It will be testing the applications. By deployment, what we expect is to be in 2030. So
all of this stuff means huge, as Juraj mentioned, huge investments. You are working in consulting side of business. How it's possible to convince those boardrooms for such a big investments? It's your role in business, so explain us a little bit.
Let me maybe go and respond to this with maybe two directions. One is quality or user experience, and the other one is also security. We have seen that as the technology was evolving from 2G to 3G to 4G and to 5G,
it's history.
It's still there in some of the countries. Yeah,
it's in Africa. It's all.
And then and when the technology was evolving, what we have seen that the technology was much more efficient. When the recent technology came, it was also more secure. Means the trend to deploy the new technology makes sense in regards to quality and also energy efficiency and security. For sure, we see a trend that decision makers like you are sunsetting legacy technology. When it comes to 2G, 3G, that technology, when we look to way forward, will be sunsetted. That is for sure rational decision making. We did recently a survey worldwide in regards to quality. It is interesting. We assessed around 120 countries, around 200 operators. And an interesting trend in these days, we saw that the networks are used more efficient in regards to energy. And then in parallel, the user experience is improving. Means the industry is really working hard on being more efficient and bringing the user experience up. And user experience means really any kind of user experience. And the things we are usually assessing are regular services like is video working everywhere? Then mute calls. Do I have mute calls or not? Is traditional voice is still there? Is a revenue driver, and we are checking is traditional voices working and are there mute calls? We are checking gaming. Then WhatsApp voice, also interesting to know. Then the performance in towns, in cities, on roads, in railways, things which are very relevant for users. And we're looking also into categories like, is the spectrum used efficiently? Because the operator is investing into spectrum. Is he using the spectrum efficiently? Capacity, is enough capacity in the network? From the user perspective, there's congestion when the capacity is concerned. In these days, very important, because also the security attacks, is reliability. When you're at home or when you're in mobility, your expectation is I'm always connected, no outage, and a minimum performance is there. Minimum means I can use video everywhere. I can send emails. I can receive emails. I can take a voice call with a certain speech quality. Also here we have seen that the networks are evolving positively.
Yes.
Very important to see is in parallel, the traffic is increasing. Means the operators are achieving this even in parallel, or also the traffic is increasing in parallel drastically. In some of the cases, 20-30% per year. And a comment on 6G. In the survey, what we did, we have seen that around 30% of the devices are at the moment at 5G. Yes. The population coverage might be at 60%. The devices are at 30%. Means there's definitely some potential
all devices,
opportunity to use 5G, monetize 5G. You know, when the CEO is concerned, then his CFO will ask him to monetize first 5G, maybe a few words on security. I started my career in telecom in security.
Telecom in security?
But I turned later to add incrementally other scope and end up in a more broader scope. In our firm, we have at the moment around 16,000 security experts.
Former hackers?
Not hackers. Security experts means I'm also not the defender, because you put me on the spot there. But I would say from these 800,000 people, 16,000 are doing security. And when I see the efforts we have across 13, 14 or 15 industries, means oil and gas, financial services, telecom. What we can see is definitely the number of attacks have been increased. No? There are maybe reasons for that. No? The trend is, while the technology is evolving, also the attacks are increasing. In telecom, we see that trends like cloudification, virtualization, are also increasing the attack vectors. Means usually you have certain areas you should protect, and when you deploy the new technology, usually the number of attack vectors is also increasing. Therefore, it's important as a telecom provider to look into security more structured, and also simulate a person like him to frequently, more frequently, and there are also ways to look into this structure. It means you look into your network, you make sure that hardening is not concerned. You patch your network. You make sure that identity management is not concerned. Password management. Then you should usually know what traffic is running through what channel to protect. When their customer data is concerned, maybe the criticality is different from when it is other traffic. Therefore, there are certain things the industry is doing. My impression also, when I look into the recent security scores we are collecting more frequently across around 60 CSPs worldwide, security level is increasing. Means knowing in general trend is increasing, knowing that the number of attacks are increasing.
Security is increasing.
Security level is increasing
of course, because I'm afraid about my data.
Is a big achievement also from the industry. That means there are efforts making sure that the technical security baselining is increasing. And here, when we look forward, automation in AI will bring additional maybe attacks, but also opportunities for the operator to protect the network. And here, just an aspiration or a vision, just assuming we're talking about dark security operation. Means you have a security operation much more automated and AI driven. For sure, still humans are around. It will remain people business, but having a security operation, knowing what's going on in the network, simulating also the attacker, any attacker, and making sure that you see things earlier, preventive, and taking the action. That's a bit the trend we also see in the industry.
It's also worth pointing out, though, that what this does is that as you harden the network, as you harden industry, it just shifts the focus of the attack onto the consumer. Because at the end of the day, if I persuade you to make a bank transfer to me completely legitimately, right? So you transfer it, it's correctly authorized, all the rest of it.
It's looking like my bank.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
all this phishing sort of like.
Yeah, exactly. But you're responding to a fraud, right? At the end of the day, there is nothing that Hakan software that can do to actually help to in other words to enhance to prevent that. So it's
only my education and my knowledge.
It's up here.
Yeah, it's only in my head.
Yeah, exactly. So what we have to do is decondition ourselves from instinctively saying yes because it appeared on our phone.
This default setup have to be different.
Exactly, the default setup. The default setup should be why, and then if not, and actually start questioning some of these responses. And one of the things that we're really starting to see now is the use of deep fakes, AI, to actually, or AI-enabled frauds. Pardon me, edit that out. AI-enabled frauds, some of which are actually extraordinarily effective. So, for example, completely faked, completely synthetic telephone calls, completely synthetic video calls, where essentially, your child will call you, and say, Mom, I'm in trouble.
Tell me her voice, everything, her face.
Transfer the money.
Exactly.
My account,
I'm stuck on the highway. Send me the
exactly.
money.
All of this sort of stuff. And so what you're starting to see is that as the attackers will always go after the weakest part in the chain.
Is a good point.
They will always go after the weakest link in the chain. So after these guys have done all their work and the system is really, really hardened, it might well be that the human being on the end of that chain is in fact actually the weakest point.
Right. Let me raise one point here. You're absolutely right. And we as a telecom operator cannot interfere with the content. We don't see the content of the data, etc. So this is really something which is exploiting the weakness of the end user, weakness quote unquote. And it's not a level playground. I mean, you are tricking the mind of people, pushing them into the situation where they're under pressure to make certain decisions and press certain buttons. And maybe I'm wrong, and it looks like a gloomy picture. But similarly, like now, a computer can win over you when playing the chess game. It's almost impossible for all users to have that common sense and exercise that common sense and to defend. So I think
it's not common sense though; it's how we're conditioned, and I think that
we have to change probably our
mindset
completely. Yeah.
Sometimes I believe, Emerson, we will need, an end user will need the help of AI on the end user protection side, actually, to detect, well, this is, there's something.
It will happen. I mean,
it will happen.
You get into this very strange arms race.
Yeah, where, one artificial intelligence will be fighting another, and then you need to judge which one is good and which one is bad.
For many users, nightmare.
It sounds like that, and I'm a little bit afraid this is something we'll have to prepare mentally for and technically for.
Yeah. At the end of the day, nothing substitutes for doing what the Invite are doing right now, which is looking at each other over a table. Because as of yet, there are no robots quite this good.
You don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's that scene from the Terms of Progressing.
Fighting 2 years. It's a horrible scenario.
But it's actually kind of fascinating, actually watching the attack vectors move, because what you're seeing is where there's obviously there is a cost reward equation that happens in this space as well, right? So what you're starting to see now is that it's like, well, okay, especially on the crime front. So I think we need to make a distinction here between cyber warfare and cyber crime. Cyber crime is all about, I need to extract economic value, right? Cyber warfare is, I want to disrupt the operation of the state's ability to do
some kind of it's some kind of terrorism, basically. Yeah,
well,
even beyond.
Yeah, even beyond. Yeah, all infrastructure, power plants, hospitals, airports, and this kind of.
So you have to make this distinction, right? So on the cyber crime front, going after the network is not it's like, you know, like that.
Because I'm not taking advantage and money from it. Yeah,
correct. Whereas if I'm at this point on this front, I'm now using AI deepfake technologies to extract economic value from end user victims. I'm extracting value via ransomware. I'm extracting value by stealing people and marketing and selling people's data and the like. On the cyber warfare side, what the aim of the game here is to attempt to disrupt the ability of the target society or target company to function. And that's very, very different, because at that point, now I really want to go after the network. Picking off individuals isn't the aim of the game here. The aim of the game here is to produce large system-wide effects.
You mentioned very important point, because we are right now in a very, let's say, complicated geopolitical situation.
It's a Cold War.
Yeah, it's a Cold War, but everybody against everybody, basically. Basically, yeah, that's the difference. There are not two sides, as in Cold War. Yeah. And on the other hand, all this IT and communication business is so global. Mm-hmm. I remember we used to have quite a deep debate in Europe about 5G from Huawei, from Chinese company. But right now, even in Europe is debate about, let's say, security of F-35 fighters. Yeah, it's a completely different point. How could it develop all this debate? Because main problem is untrust. We are in post-globalization age, and nobody is trusting other people. Yeah, other countries. Yeah, who is in war on which side? Yeah.
I may come to the core was cybersecurity in telecom. Here, I would see definitely some implication from the geopolitical. We have missed one point, as we discussed this a few minutes ago. When you're an operator, you have an objective. Usually, when it comes to security, you're protecting your infrastructure. Any kind of. Yeah. That's something you should definitely do. The second thing is what you're usually doing is you protect the customer data. As an example, one of the things, you make sure that the resilient is not concerned. And you make sure that whatever you deliver to your customer is, metered, secure, connected, reliable. That's what the operator is doing. On the device, no? It's like on your TV or on your device, the application you're using, there's another world. But until that moment, here I see the accountability definitely with the operator. Here, I'm confident that with another trend, the situation will be further hardened. There is a trend in the network world on autonomous networks. The operators are working on not only because of efficiency, cost efficiency reasons, to do things less manual, more automated, more AI. It is also to be faster. The things you do in weeks, you want to do in seconds, or processes you have in place. Processes you have in place maybe even disappear. A process you have now will not exist in the future. And this is the autonomous network track. And here we see also in security that when it comes to security operation, with new techniques, that you first identify things much earlier, also security threats, and also mitigate them, you solve them then on the fly, instead of having a process in play where a human is involved in checking and analyzing this. That's the trend we see also means the industry is already working for whatever they deliver to their customers to implement even more measures with implementing unique techniques. I would call this the autonomous network agenda and the framework. That is the trend we see as well.
No. Exactly. I think the networks are evolving to this trend that's where AI comes in, because you don't want a human to come in and detect the threat and then make a decision, right? So you want to have early warning or even predict an attack and be ready for it, or neutralize that.
So this technological iron.
That's where AI comes in, artificial intelligence comes in. That's where it's constantly monitoring the threats and sees the patterns, realizes the pattern. For example, in network where Juraj's team looks at it, where they can predict some data, manually looking at it, there is something wrong in that data, because the data volume in certain area, the type of data coming in. So we know certain things that even Accenture, his team also does the predictions. But all that, you don't need human intervention. You can have AI. If it sees a change in pattern, it will go check. It could be this, it could be. So it can automatically, without human intervention, can prevent a wide range attack on the network.
Right.
I should maybe wanted to follow up and come back to what Bas is saying. Obviously, we build a network for several different tiers of services, and one is elementary, and that is when you are in emergency or you need to call police or whatever. Network needs to work, no matter what. Then there are services which are elementary, and we fine-tune the network, which may be your video call, your basic gaming application, etc. And then there are very complex and very demanding applications which require the fine-tuning of the network for those particular applications. And by the way, Accenture has the full metrics of how to measure this with the help of crowdsourced tools, which we use, and we use those data to actually fine-tune each individual cell and each individual sector of the network. So indoor coverage, it needs to work, in the parking lot, in the underground, in the remote areas. So that's the complexity of the network. It's becoming more and more difficult for human beings actually to absorb all these requirements as the equation of many, many variables. So
because economy of attention is more and more complicated.
Well, yeah,
there's so much information, so much trends. Yeah, we are absolutely overstretched.
So to optimize the network now is all the tools which are still, algorithmic, deterministic, with human involvement and intervention is almost impossible. So we now need to engage the artificial intelligence, the advanced tools, to actually be able to absorb, process, and make a reasonable conclusions on the volumes of data which are unheard of. I mean, the traffic volumes are growing exponentially in certain areas. And then we need, so that's over the current network. So we already use the first elements of AI, uses, or not the first uses, a very advanced utilization of the security operating center, security orchestration. We are using, very advanced tools. But I think the next step is really to come up with the next generation of technology, which will have these features built into the elementary design of the network, and that's what we are talking about when it comes to the standalone 5G and a 6G. Why? Because there will be more and more demanding applications relying on the network. Maybe the last 2 points I'd like to make is there are studies which are fairly explicit, which are measuring the impact of outages or compromised network functionality on other state functions, on critical state functions.
You mean critical infrastructure?
Infrastructure and the functions, which means, that
what happens when there's no power?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
The power grid, it may be transportation, it may be healthcare, etc. And the impact, the ripple effect of the outages and compromised functionality of telecommunications network has by far the highest impact on, further all other or almost all other critical network functions. So that's so much more reason to actually protect the networks and assure the uptime of the networks. And maybe the last point related to obviously all this is expensive. And we need to assure, and we are commercial entities, we need to assure that each generation of technology is there until we have the return on investment realized, and that's 6 to 8 years life cycle. And this evolution of the demands applications is going so fast that it's starting to interfere with the regular life cycle. So we need to find a way how to sort of do the ongoing upgrades of the non-standalone 5G to standalone 5G, and then gradually transform the network into 6G, but in a way which can absorb the cost of security, which is ever increasing, and obviously will still be sustainable for the consumer to pay for those services and for the operators to actually make the business, because we are for-profit organizations. I mean, there is no way around it.
It's 8 years of return of investment?
Well, it's 6 to 8 years depending on where and what kind of technology, but that's about the cycle of the active telecommunications equipment.
And you are afraid of some, regulation framework which is developing in strange way in Europe?
Oh, you mean to be forced to replace the equipment sooner than its economic lifetime? I'm not. We have very competent discussion with the cybersecurity agency, with the relevant government bodies, very, very intelligent discussions in terms of what are the real threats and what is the timeline and the roadmap of potential replacing actually certain elements in the network and replace them with the secure, trusted vendors. So I'm not concerned.
So on the end, what is biggest challenge in simple, let's say, couple of words for next decade?
Well, for me, and I've said this a couple of times, I've been in the industry for more than 30 years. This is the stage or phase of the industry where the element of artificial intelligence makes it almost unpredictable for me to see where this will be. Where this will be in 2 years' time or 5 years' time, because the networks are becoming data centers now. The networks are becoming part of the edge computing, which is required.
It's all blending together.
It's all blending together. So, but it's fascinating. On the other hand, it's a fascinating period. So I think the challenge is to keep the pace in terms of the educating ourselves, in terms of talking, and it's becoming sort of multiple industry players or sectors discussion. It's not anymore telco and IT and the software industry. It's now all blended together, and security and artificial intelligence to really work together. Like we work together with Open RAN Development Company, and they work with NVIDIA, they work with Cisco, and to transform that knowledge into whatever our users will require in 2 to 3 years' time. So that's a challenge.
Lars?
So the challenge, same question. They are consumers of our technology. We are technology builders, right? The challenge is
different roles.
Yeah, the challenge here. So we have a bunch of smart engineers who are looking at next generation technology. How do we make CETIN look better and go to AI? So we are dreaming all these things, right? Sitting in our lab. But at the end of the day, it's a profit organization. We need to sell that. Mm-hmm. Somebody needs to pay money for that. And then what we see in the industry is all the operators have not monetized their initial 5G deployment money. So the spending
but it's a big question in the whole AI industry. It was one of the reasons for this bubble in August or something like this. There was a huge AI bubble, and maybe also in this NVIDIA
right now we are hoping eventually operators would monetize and introduce the next generation technology so that all these smart engineers sitting in their work gets deployed. The AI
that's
security,
big challenge. Price
that is
all these AI.
That is our biggest challenge.
Yeah.
I would turn the challenge to an opportunity because I think the industry is in a turning point with a positive projection, and would see that the industry should use this trend with automation, AI, or And now the next level is the agentic AI framework.
Oh, agentic?
Agentic. This maybe for the next podcast. but using
myself, yeah.
using this trend of automation and AI to do as soon as possible the cost transformation. When you do the cost transformation, usually you touch the platform transformation, where also the security, let's say, protection mechanism, the measures, all the things you have to do, you implement this. You also train your talents to become then a new bot manager instead of a service manager, or these new job families which are coming on back of automation and AI, and then ultimately then the revenue transformation means when you do all these things, ending up with more revenue and then grow the business. That's a bit the opportunity I would see here.
Can I add one more sentence to that? But I'm absolutely convinced that if you do this right, then the ultimate economic benefit for the users and the opportunities this will unlock for all industries and the end users will be by far larger than the cost we will put into this. I'm clear.
So, last word.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, challenges. Gosh.
Challenge.
I mean, like the things. There are a few things that stick in my mind. Really, geopolitics is a really big one, because that. So of the whole discussion that we've had here is very much framed in the historical norms that we've experienced essentially since the fall of the Berlin Wall. And it's clear that the ground is shifting underneath us. And so as that framing changes, so does the cost-benefit equation when it comes to technology. So what I see the future looking like is a bit like an Alfa Romeo. Have you ever driven an Alfa Romeo? Or you did? Did you, Yuri? Did you own an Alfa Romeo?
I did actually.
How much time did it spend in the garage?
Well, it was a racing car which we used for. And I have some pictures I showed. It was which we used for the races. It stood. Oh.
So the future.
I was surprised that you used to drive Alfa Romeo. Yeah.
We did. 156. Yeah.
Amazing. So the future, in many respects, I suspect, looks like an Alfa Romeo. When it works, it's unbelievably fast. The experience is unbelievably
Confirmed.
fast. It is unbelievably rich and unbelievably rewarding. Right? Yeah. But when it breaks, it will break in ways that are unexplained, difficult to fix, very hard to understand, might leave you stranded somewhere, and is completely mysterious to all but a tiny number of would-be magicians.
Confirmed. All confirmed.
But what that also means is that as we are actually thinking about what the future looks like, we may need to go back to some fundamental engineering principles and actually say, well, okay, where do we need to build in resilience? Where do we need to build in robustness? How much reliance should we place on technology? So Ravi brings up a brilliant example of AI and self-driving vehicles, right? So let's imagine a world where there are self-driving vehicles that are completely dependent on the network, and for some reason the network fails. Now you cannot get around because you don't know how to drive anymore, right? You don't know payment networks. I mean, cash.
There's no more cash anymore.
Yeah, there's no more cash anymore. So if there's no more cash anymore, the minute that the network breaks, society breaks.
Very quickly.
Very, very quickly.
Very, very quickly.
So, so for example, what we've done in our company, right? Because we work in places where the network is very unreliable because of war or conflict or natural disaster and the like, is we've gone back to those engineering principles and we've actually said, well, okay, what can we do offline? How much can we do offline? And then use clever engineering to produce a digital experience, but that digital experience still functions whether the network is up or down. It's enhanced when the network is up, but you can still perform the basic functions when the network is down. And that approach probably needs to be started to think about how do we adopt that actually much more broadly. If we have a society that is completely dependent on Internet of Things, AI, agentic AI, and we forget how to do core things, then the minute that the network goes away for whatever reason, the minute the power goes away for whatever reason, we become stranded, isolated people. And that actually is a core vulnerability that requires, it's not a change in business, it's not a change in the software, it's not a change in the network, it's not a change in how we actually execute. It's a change in here.
Yeah, definitely.
In the mind.
Everything is in mind. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for a fantastic debate.
Thank you.